So, sometime last week, I happened to be flipping through Instagram. Then I stumbled onto this very interesting clip about a 33-year-old man busy talking about why he loves and he prefers younger women. More specifically, between the ages of 21 to 25. And I'm gonna be honest with you, it's not the first time I've had a guy saying this. It's not the first time I've had a 30-something-year-old guy or just a 30-year-old guy or just an older guy talking about how much he loves younger women. But in this guy's particular case, I felt like, you know what, this is something that would probably warrant a rant. But let me just play it for you so that you can have a pretty good idea of what it is that I heard. So here it is.
I fucking love young women.
Slayer.
Between 21 and 25.
21?
21 and 20.
You're 33.
I'm 33 years old. It's been the best fucking experience.
I think I know why.
The best experience. Like, these women, typically very malleable, right? Very, very cooperative, extremely cooperative, right?
Kevin Samuels Jr.
Exciting. Listen.
For sure.
No, let me tell you, because I'm just being very honest about my experience. Like, they don't have many negative experiences. So they do truly give you grace.
Now, I'm not gonna lie, originally I started by thinking, you know what, this warrants like a full episode on its own. Then I thought about it, then I was like, there's not that much that I can really say about this entire thing, so I should probably make it a rant. But over the course of last week, something changed my mind and made me just feel like, you know what, this is something that we need to discuss on its own. And that was the Leo story. For those of you all that don't know and you've been living under a certain virtual rock somewhere, Leonardo DiCaprio and his girlfriend of about 4 years, known as Camilla Morrone, broke up after dating for about 4 years. Now, that's particularly normal for every single celebrity, except that people actually pinpointed that this babe had just recently turned 25. And it became this entire story that had sort of popped up in 2019 about how Leonardo DiCaprio not only goes for young women, but he does not date women above the age of 25, and he does not stay in relationships with women past their 25th year. Like, it was something that was particularly weird for a lot of people. Although, I'm not gonna lie, there's someone who went ahead and used Microsoft Excel and made the finest looking graph with like the images of all the women and their ages and shit, and Leonardo DiCaprio's age as it's growing and shit. And he sort of summarized it really, really well. And I'm not gonna lie, it was the first time when I actually looked at some information and I was like, you know what? I really need to go and learn more about Microsoft Excel. But anyways, that one's sort of besides the point. Now, this sort of became a topic of discussion amongst people over the course of the entire week that this story came out, because people were busy talking about how is it that Leonardo DiCaprio, even though this guy is growing older, the guy is pretty much almost knocking 50 if he hasn't already, and he's pretty much going for young girls that aren't even 25 yet. Why would he do that? Why could he do that? Why should he do that? Is it that he's not mature enough to date a woman that is older than 25? Is it that he likes younger babes because he has a certain fantasy of some sort? Does he like controlling them? Blah, blah, blah. Is he grooming them? Like, all of that shit has sort of been flying through the air recently. And most of the people that are complaining like that are actually the babes. The babes are really, really bringing a bit of a fuss about this. But the dudes, though, the dudes are like, oh, you know, he's rich, he's famous. Why shouldn't he get a babe that he wants? Why can't he get a shorty that he likes from whichever age group that is there? Like, with the kind of riches and the kind of money and the kind of wealth and fame that he has, who says he can't just go to a catalog and ask someone to bring a catalog of like models, pictures and shit and say that I want this specific babe and I want this specific babe? And this sort of became a bit of an issue. But the thing is, I've actually been hearing these conversations quite a bit lately. Like, a lot of babes, a lot of people might think that it's, you know, a bunch of guys here and there on the internet that say this, but it's something that I've been hearing quite a bit, especially around the red pill community. And if anything, people that are a part of the red pill community or represent certain ideologies that resonate with the red pill community have been known to say such things, you know, such as the likes of Fresh and Fit podcast, such as the likes of Andrew Tate, who was recently banned from like all of social media. Like, they've been saying stuff that relates to the kind of stuff that Leonardo DiCaprio is doing. Although his case is actually a little bit different. And just to sort of get done with the whole Leonardo DiCaprio story, because I don't want to center it on him, just to sort of get that one out the way, apparently, and this is a very unconfirmed piece of information, but apparently it's not that this guy actually goes looking for girls in their 20s. Apparently there's like a modeling agency that has a couple of babes on the roster, and I guess maybe he picks one or maybe they choose one for him, and the whole idea of it is they're supposed to be elevated in terms of status and fame so that they can be worth more money, at least in terms of like booking gigs and shit. And then at some point, Leo is supposed to drop them, get another one and shit like that. But like I said, very unconfirmed story. That's something that I just sort of heard on the internet, and I don't know if it's entirely true, but it does kind of make a lot more sense. But all in all, back to the whole red pill thing, because I hear a lot of guys that aren't even red pill saying this, particularly black guys. Even a lot of African guys have been saying that quite a bit. And interestingly enough, most of these guys that say this actually don't have a particularly good idea as to where this information comes from. Especially people that just join the red pill. Like, they go ahead and they're like, oh, I'll go for a babe who's like 18, 19. Oh, I'll go for like a fine chick who's like 21, 22, 23. But the reality is that they don't even know why it is that the people that they look up to say these things. And the truth of it is, it's actually based off of some statistics that came off of Tinder, if I'm not wrong. And out of the many things that were shown in those statistics, apparently the women who got the highest number of right swipes were actually between the ages of, I think, 21 and 23, if I'm not wrong. And sort of, the broader range of that, so you can go all the way further back towards 2019 and shit, 24, 25. And, those ones are the ones that were sort of getting like the next stage of like the highest number of right swipes and shit. And the reasoning that sort of gave a lot of people is that the hottest women are actually between the ages of, say, around 21 to 23, or you can say 19 to 24. Like, essentially that entire range of babes is statistically considered to be the most attractive. And as a result, there's a lot of guys that are saying, oh, I'll go for a 19-year-old, I'll go for a 20 or 21-year-old. And then there's the other part of this entire thing, which isn't necessarily a statistical backing, but just a bunch of older guys who will say and believe that younger babes are more attractive, are better to look for, they're nicer to be with, and apparently they've been through less dick, and supposedly they're not as entitled as the older babes, and apparently they're going to just end up making better girlfriends and better wives and shit. And I guess that's all fine and dandy for them, except that I do not believe any of the shit that these guys are saying. Like, I feel like this is premium grade horse shit that's being served out here. And I feel like there's more than enough evidence to actually discredit all of this horse shit around here. Like, let's be particularly honest. First of all, it's not like a babe who's 21 is automatically going to have been ran through less than a babe who's 30. Like, there's a 9-year age difference, but I kid you the fuck not, there are 21-year-old babes who have had more dick in them in terms of different niggas than babes who are 30. Even though there's a 9-year age difference, even though the 30-year-old had 9 extra years to be receiving dick, she might have gotten less and the 21-year-old might have gotten more. Especially if she's been shagging older guys the entire time and none of them ever meet with each other. It's just that at the end of the day, if you ask her body count and she decides to lie to you and she tells you that her body count is 4, you'll probably believe that it's 4. Then on top of that, there's the Tinder study that every single red pill dude that's out there that likes to talk a lot likes to refer to the whole, 21 to 24-year-olds are the hottest ones, blah, blah, blah. And by all means, while that is statistically true, those statistics do not actually account for long-term desirability and long-term sustainability. So when you look at it, yes, they're fire, and any old person or young person will look at them and they're like, damn, I'd want to have this babe. But it doesn't particularly mean that they'll make a great girlfriend or a great wife. They'll probably just make a great smash if she decides to say yes. And if she actually has a little bit of experience with riding dick. Because, there's babes that are pathetic at that as well. But for the most part, just the same way being 6 feet tall makes you incredibly more desirable to women on Tinder via statistics, doesn't mean that just because you're with a 6-foot dude, he's gonna make a great husband or a great boyfriend. Because at the end of the day, it's not like Future is 5'2", he's actually 6'2". And if anything, he's nowhere near a blueprint for what a great boyfriend is supposed to be, at least on a public level. But the other thing that I usually hear about, which kind of sounds a bit cringe, is the whole thing where apparently shorty is easier to control and she's more malleable. Of which, while I can't exactly say that that's true, even though that could be true, from the multiple experiences that I've had from a lot of babes that I know who are between the ages of like say 20 to 25, I don't think it would last for that long. Like, yes, they might seem malleable at first, but hey, if you know any older guy who's dated a chick between the age of like 20 to 25 right now, they'll probably tell you for a fact that those babes actually start becoming annoying at some point. Like, don't get me wrong, I do think that they could be controllable for those people that do believe in controlling babes to a certain degree. But when you're looking at a babe who's like 21, 22, 23, like a 21, 22, 23 babe right now is a shorty who is like still trying to explore the world. There's a lot of adventuring that she's trying to do. Like all that exploration, she might like the whole, oh, I'm dating an older guy, so that kind of makes me way more mature than my age mates kind of vibe. But at the end of the day, like, she's gonna have that. Then at some point, it's not gonna matter because, you know, she won't be doing it just for the validation. And at that point, that's when now it starts becoming a problem because now she'll start seeing your flaws. Now she won't be seeing, oh, my king, oh, this guy that I really like who's like 32 years old and I'm 23, blah, 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 love meant to be, blah, blah. Like, at that point in time, she's like, this is Brian and he can be annoying as fuck. Even though he's way older, sometimes he acts like a child. And the moment that hits, that becomes a problem. Which is why the guy that I featured on the clip earlier on isn't a guy who's talking about, you know, having been with one babe between the ages of 21 and 25. No, he's been with multiple babes. If they were so good at being controlled, then they would have probably stuck for a lot longer than up until they're like 25 years old. So all in all, while you might hear a big chunk of guys busy saying such a thing, most of them aren't even going to be able to handle such babes. Like, they might not even enjoy them all that much. Like, the conversations that someone who's in their early to mid 30s is having isn't the same kind of conversations as someone who's in their early to mid 20s is having. Like, they're completely different. They have completely different goals. So they probably may not chill together in a social setting, or at least in too many social settings, not unless if it's the guy's social setting, because this chick might decide to go for a house party, and a house party with her peers is very different from a house party with a bunch of 30-year-olds. And it's not like you'd expect a 30-year-old guy to go for a house party with a bunch of 20, 21-year-old babes, because whether he likes it or not, he is going to look like the creep around there. But to conclude this entire thing, let me just say this. While statistically it might say that 20-something-year-old babes to 20-something-year-old babes are considered to be the most attractive, I do feel like dating within your age range is probably the best thing to do. Now, I might be wrong for that, and, you know, I definitely have a bunch of life to live and shit, but that is what I feel is the best course of action right now, considering that there's such a huge difference, especially when you look at like millennials and Gen Zs. The interests are completely different. How they behave is completely different. Now, that said, I will admit statistics do not lie. Although, while those statistics might be there, the best that they can say is the older you get as a woman, the less desirable you could possibly be. But that said, I don't like the way a bunch of guys who've probably been rejected by a couple of babes and are feeling a little butthurt have decided to weaponize the entire age thing against a chunk of women that simply have desires that they cannot meet. Am I saying that those desires are completely valid and they're completely entitled to them? Not necessarily. But does it mean that you have to go and slap them with the whole, oh, you know, when you're 30, you'll have hit the wall and no guy will like you? I think that's absolute bullshit. But then again, I might be wrong about this, but I'd like to hear from the Red Pill community about this. I'd also like to hear from the babes about this. What are your thoughts on this? The DMs are open. On IG, it is at Breaktime on Westside. On Facebook, it is also at Breaktime on Westside. And on Twitter, you can find me at @BagakaTheD. That is my personal handle. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.